Medieval history is full of monarchs who died in battle, but what about the ones undone by low door frames, uncontrollable laughter, or a dead man's teeth? Some medieval rulers met ends so ridiculous they sound like a bad fiction. Drowning in knee-deep water. Frederick I of Hohenstaufen, better known as Frederick Barbarossa, was a fierce, Holy Roman emperor, a seasoned warrior, and a legendary titan of medieval history. Yet he met such a ridiculous end that it seems like a cruel joke. On June 10, 1190, while leading a massive army on the Third Crusade, the 68-year-old monarch faced his ultimate, fatal enemy, a river that barely reached his knees. While crossing the Salif, Barbarossa simply slipped off his horse into less than a meter of water. Instead of dying in glorious battle against an enemy army, the terrifying conqueror was instantly pinned to the riverbed by the weight of his own armor. Unable to stand up in a shallow stream, the mighty knight was flipped by the current and drowned in what was essentially a glorified puddle. Being dragged 16 miles by a deer. Byzantine Emperor Basil I spent the final years of his reign obsessing over secret coups and family plots, only to meet his end in an astonishingly absurd hunting disaster. In 886, while pursuing game alone in Thrace, the monarch attempted to spear a charging stag, but his weapon deflected harmlessly off its horns. Instead of fleeing, the enraged beast lunged forward, hooking the tips of its antlers directly beneath the emperor's belt. Plucked right off his horse, Basil was dragged helpless through 16 miles of rough wilderness by the galloping animal. When his followers finally located him, a heroic attendant quickly severed the belt with a sword to save his sovereign's life. Once the emperor regained consciousness, he accused his rescuer of attempting to murder him and ordered his immediate execution. Apparently, the emperor was suffering from internal bleeding and died 9 days after the hunting accident, hitting a low doorframe while riding a horse. In 881, 18-year-old Louis III, King of West Francia, achieved widespread military fame by crushing a formidable Norman invasion. Yet just a single year later, the heroic young monarch met a mind-bogglingly absurd and foolish end. Known for his passionate nature, Louis spotted a local girl and galloped recklessly after her on horseback. Terrified, the young woman dashed inside her father's house for safety. Rather than dismounting or stopping, the king spurred his horse directly behind her through the entrance, completely failing to notice the low wooden doorframe. At full gallop, his head slammed into the upper lintel with catastrophic force. The violent impact shattered his skull, leading to his death shortly afterwards. Bizarrely, low doorways proved to be a recurring fatal hazard for French royalty. 6 centuries later, King Charles VIII also met his end after striking his head on a doorframe while on his way to watch a tennis match, getting a fatal infection from a severed head's tooth. In 892, Sigurd Eysteinsson, the formidable 2nd Earl of Orkney, met one of history's most ironic ends through a dead man's revenge. After agreeing to a 40 versus 40 combat against his rival, Maelbrigte, Sigurd cheated by bringing 80 warriors. Unsurprisingly, his forces slaughtered the opposition, and to flaunt his victory, Sigurd decapitated Mael and strapped the severed head to his horse's saddle. Flush with triumph, the Earl began the ride home. However, Mael was famous for a prominent, protruding bucktooth. As Sigurd spurred his horse, his calf scraped repeatedly against the dead man's tooth, leaving a minor scratch. The wound quickly became violently infected, causing severe swelling and leading to Sigurd's death shortly after. Ultimately, the treacherous conqueror became perhaps the only warlord in history to be slain by an enemy he had already beheaded. Maelbrigte himself gained a new nickname posthumously, the bucktoothed, being killed by a spear in the toilet. King Edmund Ironside earned his heroic nickname through relentless stamina and fierce resistance on the battlefield against Danish invaders led by Canute the Great. Yet, after surviving countless bloody military campaigns, the English monarch met a shockingly undignified end on November 30th, 1016. While visiting the privy, Edmund sat down, completely unaware of the deadly threat lurking directly beneath him. According to 12th century chroniclers, an assassin had squeezed into the filthy cesspit beneath the latrine. As the king settled onto the toilet seat, the killer thrust a spear straight up through the hole. Alternative accounts even claim a concealed crossbow mechanism was rigged inside the pit to fire upward. Ultimately, the legendary warrior who had held off entire Viking armies was fatally struck down from inside his own toilet, laughing to death at a jester's joke. On May 31, 1410, King Martin the Humane of Aragon met one of history's most bizarrely lethal endings, a fatal combination of gluttony and uncontrollable giggles. Already suffering from severe indigestion after gorging himself on an entire goose and reportedly a massive feast of eels, the bloated monarch retired to his bedchamber, where his court jester soon arrived. When Martin asked where he had been, the jester claimed he was coming from a nearby vineyard, where he saw a young deer hanging by its tail from a tree, as if being punished for stealing figs. The king found the absurd mental image so outrageously funny that he fell into a violent, breathless fit of laughter. Trapped between a heavily stuffed stomach and non-stop hysterical wheezing, Martin laughed until he choked, collapsed, and died right on the spot, proving that even a silly joke can prove deadly after a massive meal. That was just the first part. History knows many more ridiculous incidents that led to the death of a ruler. The second part will follow soon. Thank you for watching, and if you want to explore more dark corners of history, don't forget to like and subscribe.